Hello, my name is Shirley Self, and I'm here to talk astrology. And today I wanted to talk about Frank Zappa. Musician, composer, and rebel, Frank Zappa was a moon phase 21, the triumph of the intellect. Let me introduce you to Zappa here. He was born the 21st of December in 1940 at 6:22 a.m. in Baltimore, Maryland. He's Sag rising. He's a Sagittarius. He's got this stellium in Sagittarius right here on the ascendant. Got this powerful Mars in Scorpio. North Node's up here on the midheaven in Libra, which is ruled by this Venus in Sagittarius. He's got a Moon-Neptune conjunction in the 9th house, and that's up there by the part of the daemon. So that Moon-Neptune conjunction is really important to him. He's got Pluto here, conjunct Chiron in the 8th. And this is another stellium here, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus in Taurus in the 5th house of creativity, the Sun's house. South Node here in Aries, 7 degrees. Fortuna here at 23, Pisces. So there's Zappa. Mercy the man. 21 is the triumph of the intellect, and it is unique. 21 has no imitators. They are to themselves, to anybody else to imitate them. They have a tremendous amount of integrity, and why? Because they follow their last moon phase was a moon phase 20, which is often way out of bounds. Remember the issue about a moon phase 20 and its opposite, moon phase 6. Is that they are to push the boundaries. And so often pushing the boundaries too far. And what that results in is the next moon phase 21, has done it all and learned better. They've learned, for instance, that to live an honest, straightforward way is the best way to function in life. And so the problem with the moon phase 21 is a certain amount of sexual anarchy. And Zappa ticks all those boxes. So let's look at Zappa. He's got this Mercury right here on the ascendant, and Mercury Oriental in Sagittarius. That's an aspiring Mercury. It aspires to communicate itself. The ascendant is ruled by this Venus, Jupiter. The Jupiter rules the Sagittarius, and Venus rules the Jupiter. So what we find here is this Venus and Jupiter are in a very powerful relationship, as they are in mutual reception. And now here's how you deal with a mutual reception. Notice that this Jupiter here, the Jupiter-Saturn, is square to Pluto. The Venus, however, is trine to Pluto. But in a mutual reception, here's what I can do, is I can take this Jupiter, and I will take it with its original degree, and I'll plant it over here in Sagittarius. So that would put a Jupiter at 6 Sagittarius right over there in the 12th house, which Jupiter loves being in the 12th house. It rules the 12th house. So, or used to, and it still does. So, when you put that Jupiter up here, all of a sudden that Jupiter, which is normally square, this Pluto, this very powerful Pluto in the 8th, when you put it up here, it is trine to the Pluto. And if you take this Venus at 1 degree and put it down here in Taurus, suddenly this Venus is square to Pluto. Now what that does is it gives him not only the complicated difficulty that he's got to deal with, but then and that's the squares, but the trines of, okay, here's how it should go. And it's just it gives this chart incredible versatility. When you look at this a stellium down here in the 5th house of creativity, and it fits very much Zappa's product. what he created. And what he created was magnificent Jupiter. It was well crafted. That's the Saturn. And it was weird. That's the Uranus. So, so we've got this incredibly powerful person here. The North Node up here in Libra wants him actually to that's his goal. That's his creativity. His career is ruled by this Venus. He's got this moon, Neptune up here. It's intercepted in the ninth house. And that moon Neptune gives him a rebellious attitude, for instance, toward religion. He's going to be very critical of religion. You know how a moon in Virgo. Yeah. Anyway, and it's also going to give him a rebellious attitude toward, the expectations of the world entirely about what he should be creating. He's his own person, and he went his own way. He's got 5 fixed planets, and that makes him stubborn. Fixed is, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. And he's got 5 planets in these fixed signs. And so it makes him really sure of himself. He knows what he's doing, knows what he's about. He's also got 5 mutable planets, which makes him nervous and gives him trouble making decisions, perhaps. No air, so he lacks objectivity. He was uncooperative, and he didn't have satisfactory relationships. The Sagittarius Gemini on the horizon there. I see very few people who have that Sagittarius or Gemini who have not had one failed relationship, and off and on working on 2 or 3 relationships. Divorce is very common in, true to his chart. Frank married young, and they divorced, and he married again and had, I think, 3 children, and named them all weird names like Moon Unit and Dweezil, and I've forgotten the name of his other son, which is actually a fairly normal name. So anyway, Zappa was different, and he loved being different. So the earth and fire, he's got that powerful earth and fire, and that makes him a steamroller, uncompromising steamroller. So it powerfully innovative, powerfully creative, and he loves to work. I've got a lot of earth and fire too, and while I'm not quite the steamroller that Zappa was, I am very practical, and working is my great pleasure in life. So Zappa, he's got this, this is all square to the Pluto. So he was of an obsessive nature. And not only does he have the square to Pluto, but he had a couple of, like the Mars is at a 165 degree to this Jupiter, and that makes you obsessive. I call it the snapping turtle aspect. It grabs hold, won't let go. And that's pretty much the way Zappa was when he was building his band, although his band was so... His second band. The first band did not meet his expectations, and so he disbanded the first band. His second band, he was much more particular about the people. He wanted them, he didn't want to have to demonstrate his music. He wanted them to be able to read music. So he chose musicians that were Juilliard quality musicians, and he turned them into an orchestra. And I remember watching this beautiful man on YouTube videos, conducting his orchestra, and he was incredible. They were so incredibly attuned to him that I think he could have just belched and they would have done something in response. Let's see what else I have to say. Zappa was his own man, definitely his own man. He knew what he's. This 29 degree is a critical degree, and I really think that Zappa was born knowing that he had something to say, and this Pluto conjunct Chiron up there gives him gave him an inner feeling of that power, so that when he was uncompromising. That's all I can say. He worked them hard. He was a slave driver at Neptune moon up there. He was obsessed about perfection. And he rebelled against censorship, and this cost him a job that he was going to have with Hungary. He was going to be a diplomat. He was going to help Hungary promote businesses in Hungary. And he was not able to do that because, notice this, the ninth house, he was a rebel against censorship. And an issue at the time was censorship. And I can remember Al Gore's wife. Al Gore was the vice president at the time. What was her name? Tipper Gore was testifying at Congress against foul language and sexual innuendo and all that, while Zappa at the same time was trying to loosen it up. So he got contrary to the government, and had been in conflict with the government from a very young age. I can't remember when he went to jail. Somebody set him up for pornography, to make a not a video but a tape, a sex tape. Anyway, he was arrested for making this sex tape, which was all a bunch of moaning and squeaking springs. And anyway, he went to jail for that. And it marked him. He never trusted the government again. When you look at this moon, it's a 22 Virgo. That's the United States Neptune in the United States, ninth house. So it's set up to, and his Pluto is on the United States North Node. So he was very much in the public eye, and not so successful in the United States as he was in Europe. He got a lot of pushback in the United States. We're a very puritanical country. Still are, and still. He warned us in the 70s. He warned us that the evangelicals were coming after the government. Beware, beware. And here we are. Here we are. Anyway, he was a couple of quotes from Zappa. My insensitivity is pretty much spread around, and it was. And he was happy to outrage anyone that wanted to be outraged, and he did. It was said that he picked targets that couldn't stand it. He was a warrior for I really think, a warrior for the best in the country. Freedom and no censorship. And you got to think about, I've thought a lot about dirty words. And a lot of the dirty words that we know were taken from the sacred words of the goddess, like bitch and cunt, and turned into dirty words by the patriarchy. So, and we don't even have a decent words for our functions, that they've got to be euphemisms. It's all very bizarre, and it's not straightforward, and it gets people in trouble. And I think it ought to be, well, I think we ought to follow Zappa's lead and say what we need to say, and however words we need to say it, and get on with life. So I want to talk about this Chiron. Look how powerful this Chiron is. It's conjunct Pluto. It's in Leo, in the 8th house. And so that's a wound to intimacy. And the conjunction to Pluto gives him that awareness of power. I have the right to be who I am and to do what I'm doing. It's sextile to Neptune, and that makes him a powerful influencer, especially considering that Neptune's up there in the house of broadcasting. He's got a septile to the moon, which makes him powerfully attuned to the changes that are going on in the country. And he's got an inconjunct, to a wide inconjunct to the sun, which is a versatility and an attunement to the now, attuned to what's going on with now. He's got a square to Saturn, which is the conflict with authority, which was ongoing through his life. And he has that square to Jupiter, which is an obligation to teach. And the musicians in his orchestra, while they were excellent musicians, or he wouldn't hire them, by the time he had finished with them, they were amazing. And even though he was cruel and he was a slave driver, truly. He worked them so hard, and they loved him. They loved him, and they were incredibly attuned to him. Watching him conduct his orchestra was just a real pleasure for me. So let's look at an incident that happened to Zappa on the 10th of December in 1975. Now look at this. We've got here the progressions of brought the sun to 5 degrees Aquarius. And so it's brought the sun to opposing Pluto. And what happened to Zappa, he was touring Europe, and I think he was in Switzerland or Sweden. And at one concert, some idiot in the audience shot off a flare, set the ceiling on fire, and Zappa and crew lost everything they had. I think there was something left, maybe a drumstick or a harmonica or something, but they virtually lost all their equipment. And so they were going forward with borrowed equipment or rented equipment. And this is an incident that happened on the 10th of December in 1975. Now, remember the moon phase 21. One of the difficulties they have is that they're kind of sexual anarchy. Now, here's a list. Here's a list of moon phase 21s. Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Albert Einstein. Now you say, Albert Einstein had sexual anarchy? Well, when Albert Einstein won the Nobel, he had a partner, and her name was Melva Marick, and she also was a moon phase 21. And the two of them worked together for I don't know how many years to come up with E equals mc square. She was the physicist and he was the mathematician. Now, I think they had 3 children by the time he abandoned her and left and came to America. And so both of them were a little sexually anarchic there. But I never quite forgave Einstein for abandoning Melva. And he did give her the money from his Nobel Prize. Anyway, so sexual anarchy is an issue with moon phase 21. And Zappa was not only married twice, but he was notoriously unfaithful to his wife. And I would see in the videos that women would come up to the stage and he would lean down and kiss them. Well, what happened was, notice the Pluto's over there in the 7th house now. And some jealous husband or lover of some enraptured woman pushed Zappa off the stage. And it was a long way down, I think 14, 15 feet. He fell onto concrete. His band all rushed and looked down on him, and they were sure he was dead. And he was incredibly broken up. He had a concussion, various and sundry broken bones. He spent over a year in a wheelchair. It took him a while to recover. Did indeed. Changed his voice. I really liked his voice after the accident because it lowered it. And I always thought it was an improvement on his voice. But he nearly died. And what's interesting to me is that Zappa didn't have, enough water in his chart for him to take advantage of these 12th house powers of knowing what's coming. He should have been more suspicious, but he didn't have that water available to help him. Because I really think he should have known that he was in danger and been more careful. I don't think that was Frank's way. Anyway, this accident nearly killed him. Nearly killed him. He was 75. And he did. He died on December 4th, 1993. Now, at the time, the transiting Jupiter was at 5 Scorpio, and in opposition to the natal Jupiter. And the transiting Mars was at 19 Sagittarius on this Mercury. And the transiting Moon was at 23 Leo, opposite the transiting Saturn at 25 Aquarius, turning this into a grand square. A grand square. And Zappa died of prostate cancer. And look at this. He's got this Uranus in Taurus, and the sexual organs are highlighted in Scorpio Taurus here. And it's just on the hidden side of the 6th house of health. Now, Zappa had been to the doctor several years before the cancer was discovered. By the time the cancer was discovered, it was too late to save him. And so it hid itself quite well. They should have discovered it a couple of years before, or several years before they did. And anyway, that's what killed Frank Zappa. And he was killed, his father, Zappa's father, worked for the military. He did research in radioactive materials weapons. And so what he would do would he bring home interesting tools and glassware, etc., for his son to play with. And so at a very early age, Zappa was radiated, and it showed up in the early 1990s and eventually killed him. I didn't like Zappa for a long time. I thought he was silly. But then I hadn't paid much attention. My son, who has always been a real strong Zappa fan, convinced me to have another look at Frank. He said, watch him. You're going to love him. And I did. So there's Zappa. He was beautiful and interesting, and yeah, he was kind of mean. He was mean. He was uncompromising about what he wanted and demanded that people that worked for him live up to his expectations, and they did, joyously. They produced music for the future. Anyway, that's Zappa, and I'm glad I finally learned to appreciate him. I hope that you're well. I'm doing pretty good. And like I said before, love is the most important thing we produce in this world. So when you love somebody, let them know. It matters. Take care. Bye-bye.